everyone. I am Dr. Divya Jain, Department of Botany, SD College, Ambala, Kent. In this video tutorial, we will talk about the morphology, anatomy, and the life cycle of a bryophyte, Markensia. This tutorial is divided in two parts. Part 1 would cover the morphology, anatomy, and the vegetative reproduction of Markensia, and the part 2 would include the sexual reproduction and the life cycle of Markensia. Before we start with the detailed type study of Markensia, we need to refresh our general concept of what are bryophytes. You see, bryophytes are a group of thalloid land plants that require water at every step of their life cycle. That is, they cannot complete their life cycle without water, even though the plants are terrestrial. You see, almost all the bryophytes, they are terrestrial in habitat. However, few bryophytes like Rixia fluitans, they are found in aquatic habitat. The plants usually grow in moist, shady places, for example, on the sides of ditches, ponds, damp soil, moist rocks, wet hills, and many other similar types of habitats. These plants usually exhibit distinct alternation of generations with specific sporophyte and gametophyte. An important aspect of life cycle of bryophytes is that their sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte. That means the sporophytic generation of bryophytes, it is dependent on gametophyte. The division Bryophyta is divided into three divisions: Hepaticopsida, which are commonly called as liverworts; Anthocerotopsida, which are commonly called as hornworts; and Bryopsida, which are commonly called as mosses. In this particular tutorial, we will study Markensia, a liverwort, in detail. You see, the term liverwort originated from the fact that in the Middle Ages in Europe, Markensia and related plants, they were thought to resemble a liver, as well as they were used as medicines to treat liver diseases. So the plants like Markensia, they are commonly called as liverworts. Markensia belongs to class Hepaticopsida, order Markensiales, family Markensiaceae, genus is Markensia. The genus Markensia is distributed all over the world and is represented by 65 species, and 11 species of Markensia are also reported from India. The species occur in dense green patches, as you can see over here. They occur in dense green patches in the moist, cold, and shady terrestrial habitats. In India, you can find Markensia growing mostly in the hills, on the forest floors, shaded cliffs, tree trunks, or on the muddy banks of water bodies like ponds. Plants, they grow best in the recently burnt soil after forest fires, because that very soil is rich in nitrogen. The most common species reported from India is Markensia polymorpha. And this species has been reported from Himalayan mountains, South Indian hills, and even from the plains. The other common Indian species are Markensia nepalensis, Markensia indica, and Markensia similana, Markensia palmata. The main objectives of this tutorial are to make you understand the morphology, and anatomy of the thallus of Markensia, the vegetative reproduction of Markensia, asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction, and life cycle of Markensia. Let's start with the thallus structure of Markensia. As you know, Markensia is a bryophyte and it has a well-developed gametophyte on which the sporophyte develops after sexual reproduction. The main plant body, as you see over here in the diagram as well as in the picture, is a haploid gametophyte called as thallus because it lacks true roots, true stem, and true leaves. The gametophytic plant body is green, prostrate, dorsiventral, and dichotomously branched. Here you can see that the thallus is dichotomously branched. Each branch has an apical notch with a growing point at its base, and each branch is known as a lobe. So that means the main plant body is the gametophytic thallus, the green, which grows prostrate. Prostrate means parallel to the surface of the ground, is dorsiventrally flattened like a leaf, and is dichotomously branched. And each branch has an apical notch. That means at the tip of the branch you see a notch which is known as the apical notch, and each branch is known as a lobe. We will study the dorsal and the ventral surface of the thallus in detail. The dorsal surface of the thallus, as you can see, is dark green with a broad dark median thickening. You see in the center there is a broad dark and median thickening, and this is called as the midrib. The midrib appears as a shallow groove on the dorsal side. And if you hold a hand lens and observe the dorsal surface of the thallus, you will see several diamond shaped polygonal areas. See over here in this picture, the dorsal surface bears several diamond shaped polygonal areas. These areas are called as the photosynthetic chambers, or they are called as the areoles. The photosynthetic chambers, they just like underneath these polygonal areas. In the center of the polygonal areas, you see this dot is the air pore. And through this air pore, the underlying photosynthetic chamber, they communicate with the external environment. So you see this is the dorsal surface of the thallus. Thallus is dorsiventrally flattened and it is dichotomously branched, grows prostrate on the surface, and in the center you see a median groove which is the midrib, and also the lobes of the thallus, they bear the apical notch in the apex region. The dorsal surface has got diamond shaped polygonal areas, and each polygonal area is pierced by a hole, and these polygonal areas, they represent the underlying photosynthetic chambers. In addition to these polygonal areas, there are small cup-like structures that are present along the midrib, and these cup-like structures, they are called as the gemma cups. These gemma cups they bear gemmy, which are the reproductive structures and help in vegetative reproduction. So I hope the dorsal surface of the Markensia thallus is clear to you. Now moving on to the ventral surface of the thallus. Ventral surface of the thallus is closely appressed to the substratum. The ventral surface of the thallus shows a median longitudinal groove. On both the sides of this groove, numerous rhizoids and scales are present. You can see in this diagram also there is a median longitudinal groove, and on both the sides of this median longitudinal groove several rhizoids and scales are present. So these thread-like structures, they are the scales, and these flattened structures sticking to the ventral side, these they are the scales. You can see in this picture, these they are the scales, and these thread-like structures, they are the rhizoids. And where the midrib is present on the dorsal side, on the ventral side, you also see a median longitudinal groove. Let's talk about the rhizoids and the scales. The rhizoids are colorless, unicellular, unbranched, tubular outgrowths that arise from the ventral surface of the thallus. The rhizoids are of two types: smooth walled rhizoids and tuberculate rhizoids. The smooth walled rhizoids, as you can see in this diagram, they are broad with smooth and thin walls. These rhizoids, they help in fixation and absorption of water and minerals from the soil. The tuberculated rhizoids originate just beneath the scales, and these rhizoids they run parallel to the surface appressed to the thallus, and they form a conducting capillary system. This helps to retain the moisture and also help in conduction of water to all absorptive areas of the thallus. The tuberculate rhizoids, they are comparatively thick-walled as compared to the smooth-walled rhizoids, and from the inner wall of these rhizoids arise several peg-like outgrowth which project towards the lumen of the rhizoids. And if you observe these rhizoids under low magnification, the tuberculated rhizoids appear dotted. The tuberculate rhizoids, like I told you, they run parallel to the surface of the thallus, that is closely appressed to the substratum, and they form a capillary conducting system. And this capillary conducting system, it helps to retain the moisture. The scales, they are arranged in 2 to 4 rows on each side of the midrib. So on each side of the midrib, you would see membranous scales arranged in 2 to 4 rows. We will talk about the scales of Markensia in this tutorial belonging to the species Markensia polymorpha. In Markensia polymorpha, there are 3 rows of scales, and these 3 rows of scales are known as the inner row, the middle row, and the outer or the marginal row. The scales that are present close to the midrib or in the inner row, they are appendiculated scales, or they are appendiculate scales. They are large and wedge shaped in outline. The appendiculate scale has three parts: body, neck, and an appendage or appendix. The outer two rows of scales in Markensia polymorpha are ligulate scales. These scales are simple, shaped like a tongue, and they do not have any appendage. Each scale, as you can see in the diagram, these are multicellular, membranous. Okay, they are thin plate-like membranous structures and are one cell layer thick. They are purplish in color because of the presence of anthocyanin. Sometimes oil cells are also present in the scales. The margins of the scales, they bear mucilage hair-like structures known as the mucilage papillae. Mucilage protects the cell from desiccation because mucilage helps to absorb water. The scales therefore help to retain moisture and transport water by capillary action. So that's all about the ventral surface of the thallus of Markensia. Ventral surface is closely appressed to the substratum and is attached to the substratum by means of rhizoids, especially the smooth walled rhizoids. And also on the ventral surface are present the tuberculated rhizoids and the scales. And all these three, they help to retain the moisture. In the adult gametophyte, the dorsal surface bears certain upright branches near the apical notches, and these branches, they are known as the gametophores, and these gametophores, they bear the sex organs. All the species of Markensia, remember, all the species of Markensia are dioecious. That is, a particular gametophyte would either bear the male gametophore or it would bear the female gametophore. Male gametophore is known as the enthyriophore. Female gametophore is known as the archegoniophore. So the gamete would either bear the enthyriophore or the archegoniophore. And therefore, the gametophytic thallus can be designated as male or female gametophytes. Let's now see how the gametophytic thallus looks like internally. The internal structure of the thallus shows the differentiation of the thallus in three different regions. These are the epidermal regions consisting of the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, the photosynthetic region, and the storage region. Let's study each of these regions one by one. The thallus has a well-defined upper and the lower epidermis. The upper epidermis consists of a single layer of thin-walled cells having discoid chloroplasts. The upper epidermis, as you can see in this diagram, is interrupted by many barrel-shaped air pores. One at the roof of each photosynthetic or air chambers. That means just below the epidermis, there is the photosynthetic zone that consists of rectangular photosynthetic chambers, and each photosynthetic chamber on its roof has an air pore. Each air pore is a barrel shaped passage surrounded by a wall that is made up of 4 to 8 tiers of cells placed one above the other. Each tier, each tier consists of 4 to 5 cells. Like I told earlier, each pore is barrel shaped. Each air pore is barrel shaped and therefore it is broad in the middle and narrow at the two ends. The pore wall lies half above the epidermis and half below the epidermis, and therefore the pore slightly appears raised on the dorsal surface. The pores are actually the wide open channels and do not open or close like stomata. Just beneath the upper epidermis, there is a single horizontal row of photosynthetic chambers or air chambers separated from each other by a single layered septum or a wall, 2 to 4 cells in height. So each photosynthetic chamber is separated from each other by means of a septum. Each chamber, as discussed earlier, it opens out through a barrel-shaped air pore. In the surface view, if you observe these air chambers, they are diamond-shaped polygonal areas, but these they look rectangular in the vertical transverse section. A large number of short, simple, branched filaments arise from the floor of each chamber. All the cells of the filament they have several discoid chloroplasts. These filaments are called as photosynthetic or assimilatory filaments and perform the function of photosynthesis. The cells of the assimilatory filaments, the floor of the photosynthetic chamber, the septum, all the cells, including the epidermis, have numerous disc shaped chloroplasts, and therefore, this region of the thallus performs active photosynthesis and hence is known as the photosynthetic zone. The zone below the photosynthetic zone is the storage zone, and this zone lies on the ventral side of the thallus. The storage zone is thickest in the middle and gradually thins towards the margins. As you can see, it is thickest in the middle and gradually thins towards the margins. The tissue consists of compactly arranged parenchymatous cells, which are rich in starch and proteins, as well as they store oil also. Intercellular spaces are absent, and some cells of the storage zone, the cells they have reticulate and pitted thickenings. The storage region on the ventral side is covered over by the lower epidermis, which bears rhizoids and scales. So the lower epidermis bears rhizoids and scales. The storage region, since it stores the food in the form of starch grains or the proteins or the oil, and hence the name storage zone. So I hope the internal structure of the thallus of Mertensia is clear to you. We now move on to the means of reproduction in Mertensia. Mertensia reproduces by vegetative and sexual methods. Let's first discuss the vegetative reproduction in Mertensia. The vegetative reproduction in Mertensia takes place by fragmentation, regeneration, formation of adventitious branches, and the formation of gemmy. Fragmentation is the most common method of reproduction in Mertensia. See, as a result of aging of the mature cells of the posterior region of the thallus, so the posterior region of the thallus, the cells, they are mature, and these cells, they die and disintegrates. When the decaying reaches the dichotomy, when the decaying or the death, it reaches the dichotomy, it separates the two thallus lobes, and each lobe can give rise to a new thallus. So the aging starts in the posterior part of the thallus. When the death and decay reaches the dichotomy, the two lobes of the thallus, they separate, and each portion develops into a new individual. Another mode of vegetative reproduction is the formation of adventitious branches. Under favorable conditions, the thallus produces adventitious branches mostly on the ventral side, and these branches, when separated from the parent plant, they can give rise to a new plant. Any portion of the thallus can produce the adventitious branches. The most interesting and specialized method of vegetative reproduction in Mertensia is gemmy formation. In Mertensia, the gemma, they are produced in autumn and spring. These gemmi, they are produced inside small gemma cups on the dorsal surface in the midrib region of the thallus. The gemma cups in the beginning appear as small circular areas just behind the apical notch. But due to the upward growth of the dorsal surface of the thallus, the circular areas soon become the cavities surrounded by the fringed margin of the thallus. Let's study the formation of gemma in detail. Anatomy of the gemma cup reveals that each cup is a cavity surrounded by the extension of the gametophytic thallus around the cavity as a fringed margin. Like I told you, just behind the apical cell on the midrib, circular areas they appear, and those circular areas they become surrounded by the vegetative tissue of the thallus, which grows around that circular areas as a fringed margin, and therefore those circular areas now appear as a cavity surrounded by the vegetative thallus, which forms a fringed margin around the cavity. The gemma arise from the floor of the cavity. So from the floor of the cavity, the gemma cup produces the gemma, and along with gemma, several mucilage cells are also formed at the base of the gemma in the gemma cup cavity. Each gemma consists of a multicellular green body. So you see the gemma cup and these green the structures, they are the gemma. So each gemma cup consists of a multicellular green body and a unicellular hyaline stalk by means of which it is attached to the floor of the gemma cup. The gemma, as you can see, it is in the shape of a numeral 8 arranged in the front view, and it is a biconvex lens shaped from the side view. That is, if you observe gemma in the front view, it will look like number 8, while in the side view it will appear as a biconvex lens shaped structure. Each gemma is several cell layer thick in the middle and gradually thins towards the margin. The margin of the gemma bear two lateral notches, and within these lateral notches is present the apical cell or the growing point. As you can see in this picture, most of the cells of the gemma are chlorine-chimeras, that is, they are green in color, except few cells which are the oil cells and the rhizoidal cells. Now let's see how these gemma they give rise to a new thallus. As it rains, water gets filled up in the cup cavity. The cup, as I said earlier, also has many mucilage cells at the base of the gemma. These mucilage cells, they absorb water and break the stalk of the gemma from the floor of the gemma cup. The free gemmi, they float in the water collected in the gemma cup, and with the splash of rain they are washed away and get dispersed in the nearby areas, and they germinate if they get a suitable substratum. So these cup cavities they become filled with water due to rain, and the raindrops they splash away the gemma to a distance, and if the gemma falls on a suitable substratum, it will start to germinate. Now, when a gemma falls on a substratum, the surface of the gemma which comes in contact with the substratum becomes the ventral surface, and that which remains exposed becomes the dorsal surface. So initially you see this gemma, it is standing erect, but when it falls on the substratum, the side which comes in contact with the substratum becomes the ventral side, and the upper side becomes the dorsal surface or the dorsal side. The, the lower surface or the ventral surface develops the rhizoids. That means these rhizoidal cells, they now extend and they form the rhizoids which penetrate into the soil and start water absorption. Both the growing points in the lateral notches, they become active, and two thalli are formed in the opposite direction. As the two thalli, they grow and become independent, the middle portion of the gemma dies and decays. One thing you should keep in mind, that the gemma produced on the male gametophyte will give rise to the male gametophyte, and those produced on the female gametophyte will multiply the female gametophyte. Let's summarize what you have just learned. In this tutorial, we focused on the external and the internal features of gametophytic thallus of Markensia, as well as we studied the vegetative reproduction in Markensia. The thallus of Markensia is dorsiventrally flattened, dichotomously branched, and has a prominent midrib, polygonal areas, and gemma cup on the dorsal side. On the ventral side, the thallus bears two types of rhizoids and scales. Internally, the thallus is differentiated into epidermal region, photosynthetic region, and the storage region. Along with this, we also studied the vegetative reproduction in this tutorial. Apart from reproducing by means of fragmentation and adventitious branches, Mercantia thallus produce gemma cups which produce gemmi, and gemmi germinate to form the new thalli. With this, we come to the end of the tutorial. Let's take a small quiz to assess how well you have understood the lesson. Name two types of rhizoids of Markensia. Name the two types of scales of Markensia. What do the diamond-shaped areas on the dorsal surface of Markensia thallus represent? Do the air pores of Markensia thallus exhibit opening and closing like stomata? Name the two zones in the internal structure of Markensia. What is the function of scales? What is the function of gemma cups? What is fragmentation? What is a gemma? How many thalli does a gemma of Markensia produce? Try answering these questions to find out how well you have understood the lesson. These are some of the references I have used in making of this tutorial. The diagrams have been drawn by Saurav Vash, a botany student of ST College, Ambala, Kent. In the next video tutorial, we will be discussing the sexual reproduction in Markensia. Thank you.